What is real? Real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Open your mind.
Well, happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on the Fringe. I'm your host, Jeff Spike Wong, and today we have a very special guest. This gentleman is one of the deepest researchers I've ever heard, and I've been following him all year long, and it's just amazing what this gentleman has pulled out and done research in regards to our history, regards to the world events and so forth. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mike S. King. How are you doing, Mike?
Hey, I'm doing good, Jeff. Good to be with you.
Thank
Only
you for
one
being
year?
here.
Only 1 year?
Well,
huh?
you know, my brain's a little fuzzy, I would say. But I
Yeah.
would say that I caught you talking about presidents and before that. But when I
Okay.
really dug into when you started talking about the presidents throughout history, especially hit
Yeah.
home when you started talking about Theodore Roosevelt setting up
Yeah.
the table. Because, you know, we have a lot of propaganda on television and movies.
Yeah.
And I've always noticed that Theodore Roosevelt has always been revered as
Yeah.
this great president, this great groundbreaker, and especially on a show like Blue Blood, where Tom Selleck plays the police commissioner and he worships Roosevelt.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once I heard you, and I was like going, oh man. And it makes so much sense because for the longest time, I've always told the audience and I've told everybody, Woodrow Wilson is probably one of the worst presidents we've ever had.
Yeah.
And he's a drunk on top of that.
Yeah.
I had no idea, really thinking about it going backwards, of who set the table up for him to
Yeah.
be that guy. And you,
Yeah. Well, you'll find, generally speaking, especially with contemporary figures, and we could define contemporary, I guess, is from 1900 on. As a general rule, if you haven't got the time to research and read and think, you just want to take the lazy man's way out, anyone who's puffed up as some sort of hero, you just kind of invert it. And conversely, it's usually the same the other way around, too.
Yeah.
Most of the villains are the true heroes. But yeah, Teddy Roosevelt escapes the scorn that he deserves. Everything's heaped on Wilson, but he gave us Wilson. He set him up perfectly, even though he personally didn't like Wilson.
right.
But there's a whole story there. Yeah, he set the country up, did enormous damage.
Right. And right prior to us coming on, you were saying there was things that started even back in the 1800s. I mean, is this like the apex when Lincoln was taken out? Did it start around there or even prior to that?
Well, if you want to, I mean, in my books, I've got a book, Crash Course NWO, which is a very loose framework. I cover 250 years, just 1 hour, large print, lots of pictures. It's not going to make anyone an expert, but it's the first one of my books that people should read. It's on Amazon, Crash Course NWO. Also at my website, realnewsandhistory.com. You look at the books and PDF section. But I generally start the story about the 1770s, and there's even stuff that went on before that.
Right.
That's around. That's when the Illuminati was organized, the secret society, aiming for subversion of all the world's governments and the eventual establishment of a one world totalitarian state well into the future.
Yep.
Okay. Shortly thereafter, there came the rise of the Rothschild family. And they funded the takedown of Napoleon, who was against the lending of money and interest, and he was a nationalist. So, and from the Rothschilds, you could see the influence, the economic and political influence passing down from generation to generation. Today, the great grandsons were huge supporters of Hillary, for example. There's still, you would see them. Well, you don't really see them lately, actually.
Right.
To tell you, there's a whole story there.
I bet. Yeah.
But that's blood. That's one family, the Sulzberger family, which is on the New York Times. That goes back 130 years.
Wow.
Rockefellers goes back hundreds. So
that's right.
It's a long time, but if you want to put your finger on a starting point. I won't call it a starting point. Even the starting points have build up to it.
Sure.
But a point in time where you could really begin to see things and get receipts for them. You could say 1770s.
Okay.
And there's just no question there's a continuity of this. And all of the major events of the last 250 years, most of them revolve around this struggle between this nefarious satanic cabal and humanity. Wars, coups, assassinations, economic calamities. It's just incredible. And I link that together in all my works, and you see it's the same hand, just passing from generation to generation.
Right.
Yes, they did take out Lincoln, and they did take out Napoleon, and they did take out Hitler, and they absolutely hated Donald Trump. It's the same cabal, no question about it. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I could imagine. And let me just ask you a few questions that has always been burning in my mind. When I noticed that the Illuminati's founded in 1776 at the same time, I realized that they were already right here when the country was founded. So was the thought process of them overseas, this whole group thinking, you know what, we don't want to sit there and get into this ugly war thing. Let's just pretend and let them think they won, and let's come through the back door and let's infiltrate that away. Does that sound pretty close?
Well, I'll say this: the American Revolution was planned and executed at its high levels by elements of the Freemasons.
Yes.
And the Freemasons themselves were infiltrated by or controlled by this cabal. But having said that, it's also important to understand that back then, and even to some extent today, it's not as if the Freemasons were monolithic. To put it in simplistic terms, I guess you had good Freemasons, bad Freemasons, right?
Right.
But what they had in common was a disdain for the system of aristocratic monarchy. They were all anti-monarchy. George Washington was a Freemason, Ben Franklin, later on Andrew Jackson, right?
Yeah.
But those are good, honorable men who believed in freedom for the people, believed in God and promotion of humanity. But then on the other extreme, the Rothschilds were Freemasons. Karl Marx was a Mason. So what's going on there? Were these men in league? No, obviously not. But they did have that common denominator of being opposed to the old aristocratic hereditary monarchy systems.
Yeah.
So you do see for that reason, you see some similarities between the American Revolution and the French Revolution. The French revolutionaries were openly citing the American Revolution as like their template, but really fundamentally they're totally different. Because the French Revolution, the Jacobins, later on the communists, they're totalitarian, atheistic, etc.
Yeah,
not like America. So that's why you'll see those commonalities between like the American Revolution and the ideals of the Illuminati.
Yeah,
but yet at the same time, there's huge differences.
That's interesting because I've always thought Freemasonry has an element of understanding things beyond the third density matters and so forth. So what I've always found that the Freemasonry is not necessarily bad. Like you said, there's a good and the bad. Yeah. I think what happened was that the Illuminati using the same principle. It's just no different than, let's say, Wiccan magic, that if the practitioner uses it in a self-serving way, then of course it's going to use a different energy to it. Yeah. And that's what I found, that this group of Illuminati that came over and took over and started to seep into the American consciousness and the culture since its inception was operating on that principle.
Yeah. And this conflict existed from the very founding of the American Republic. Okay. So already you could see it For example, in the administration of George Washington, Alexander Hamilton was Secretary of the Treasury. You could call him the father of the original central bank. Thomas Jefferson was Secretary. Not only opposed Hamilton vociferously on this issue of a central bank, but on a personal level, they hated each other. So there's right from the start, they were here, and that's what the Illuminati specialized in: the penetration of the Masonic lodges, and they would recruit there. And it's ideal because with Freemasonry, you've got all of this networking going on and this secrecy and rituals, right?
Right.
If you could plug into that and recruit from that, it's that element's already built in with the secret society stuff.
Right.
So, but the Freemasons were not the pinnacle of New World Order. It's more like they were penetrated by these cabal characters, and the first example of that would be the Illuminati penetrating the Freemasons.
Sure. Yeah. Right. I'm with you on that. And then, as we were coming out of the 1800s, going into 1900s, it just seems to be there was a lot of excitement, especially with technology coming forward, with transportation start to change over to mechanical. Industrial age was about to come fruit. It was being developed. What happened there leading to World War I? Why did that even happen?
It's interesting. If you look at the late 1800s, it almost seems like the high watermark of civilization, of culture and progress, economy, and the emerging technologies, with the electricity, later on the automobiles, right?
Yeah.
You would have thought back at that time that we're really on the cusp of a golden era of peace and prosperity. And it just seems that by the time World War I came along, like you ask, what happened?
Yeah.
But what I've discovered in my research is clearly the thread that's running throughout the whole 19th century. The whole sequence of events was leading up to that disaster. So while a lot of people thought things are okay, they weren't okay. These subversive societies were indeed setting the table for the disastrous world wars of the 20th century. They're long-term planners.
Okay. Yes.
They've always known that they would not likely live to see the ultimate fruit of their conspiracy.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And
to me, I think that's because of some sick spiritual satanic element to it. They just pass it down and they work on it. And that's something in the modern day people don't really relate to.
Yeah.
But it used to be how people thought. I mean, you look at the ancient cathedrals, it would take like a couple centuries to build. They weren't even going to see it, yet they started it.
Right. Yep.
So I think it's like this as well, only in a negative sense. They didn't think, okay, we're going to set up a war in a few years and boom, we'll get our world government. No, they knew that there was centuries of work ahead. And they just passed it down.
Right.
But in the 1880s, 1890s, there's no doubt. There's no question about it. You could see it.
Yeah.
Back then, it was hard to see, although some people warned. But certainly, with hindsight, you could see they were setting the table, the chess pieces for the coming disasters of the 20th century. And that's going back 1880s, 1890s.
Right.
And that's when everything started to change. I mean, just a few years.
Right.
You had the Federal Reserve currency debasement operation, counterfeit operation set up in this country, the personal income tax, World War I, League of Nations, embryonic structure of a world government. It just happened so fast.
Yeah.
People didn't know what hit them. And they kind of woke up in 1920s asking, what the hell just happened?
Right.
But, just as is the case with hurricanes or earthquakes, they come out of nowhere, or so it seems.
Wow.
But in reality, there's pressures are building.
Right.
In advance until everything clicks. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I put forth the loose outline of these sorts of events and activities in my book, Crash Course New World Order. And then I have the Planet Rothschild series. That's a little bit more in depth.
Right.
But that's what I do. And I think that's always been underappreciated within the so-called truth or conspiracy community. Typically, when you start studying it, the starting point is always 1912, the election of Woodrow Wilson. which indeed was a disaster.
Yep.
To get to that point was a whole lot of evil, nefarious activities and events which occurred before that.
Yeah. And did you think that overall through research that World War One was to take out the powers that has been in stronghold of Europe and Eastern Europe? There's a lot of old mystic technology information that they absolutely wanted to remove, because from what now we are dealing with, I believe, is a whole mindset wipe from previous civilizations, even previous century, if you will. You know, and now all of a sudden we're sitting here going, wait, what happened? You know, how did this become our reality, where today we're talking about trafficking children, we're talking about Satanism in reality, we're talking about the whole entertainment business being run with dark force and dark energy, where 10 years ago this was not even the topic of discussion. So the awakening of all this, I think, comes back to, okay, did it run its course? What's your take on that?
Well, I think this, again, it's very similar, only you flip it around now. Because now the revolution is working in the opposite direction. We're destroying the old system, which those old subversives built. And it's a similar dynamic. There's actually been a long buildup to it. Now we see things happening rapidly, so it's kind of analogous to that period of time after 1912 with the income tax, the Fed, the World War One, right? Now it's happening in reverse. We're getting all of these changes and revelations and awakening, and that's going to intensify very soon, by the way. But even that was set up. For example, I am convinced that the military's release of internet technology to the public, because the military had it, was the ARPANET, and that's what, early 1990s. I believe they did that with this purpose in mind, to begin the process of circumventing the fake news.
There you go.
That is something they never anticipated.
Right.
And it's totally, can you imagine without the internet, how many of us are still asleep?
Oh, no question. As a matter of fact, interestingly, Mike, that, I was born and raised in Taiwan. Okay. So I came to America when I was 10. But when I first got on the internet in the mid to late 90s, of course, it's like going into a library at your disposal anytime now. Yeah. And I start to do research on my homeland, Taiwan. What is the story? Because I knew what I was raised with. Martial law, Chiang Kai-shek, everything's praise him, almost in a spiritual, in a deity way, if you will, right? And once I read the history of Taiwan and also Chiang Kai-shek and what they were doing, I was blown, absolutely mind blown in regards to how that happened. So coming out of World War One, Germany was destroyed, right? Yeah. And then Russia was basically taken apart.
Yeah.
But they didn't finish the job, according to what I've heard from you, from also other sources. It's almost like the cabal stepped back and went, oh, that's not all of it.
Yeah.
So then they had to start planning on the next one. So
that's right.
Yeah. Elaborate on that for
us.
It
was quite a project, quite an ambitious agenda.
Yeah.
That they had begun to unfold pretty much immediately after the election of Woodrow Wilson. Of course, it was set up long in advance, but the idea was to have this horrific war with the modern weapons and the poison gas and everything. And just, it was intended more as a revolution than anything.
Okay.
Wipe out all of these old governments, monarchies, and then replace them with a democracy, which is code language for corrupt parliamentarian systems whereby the cabal, they rule. It's always been presented as power to the people. That's why we have to get rid of the monarchs and the aristocrats. No, it's a transfer of power to a parliament, which ostensibly represents the people, but it doesn't. It represents the cabal. And look what came out of World War One. This is by design. The Romanov dynasty was overturned in Russia. and the Bolsheviks seized Russia.
Yeah.
In Germany, the Kaiser Wilhelm had to flee for his life to Holland. Right. They almost went communist. Berlin was actually seized by communists. Only lasted a little while. The military overturned that, but Germany then became a parliamentary democracy. Austria-Hungary was busted up. Yeah. The centuries-old Habsburg dynasty, again, out of business. So all over Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, democracy broke out. And that's the design. That was the plan.
Right.
Because these parliamentarians, they're not serving the people. They're serving generally speaking, they're easily corruptible. They're serving a cabal. That's why they wanted to get rid of the monarchs, you see. And then, of course, the big plan was to put them all together in the framework, right? Or the embryo of a one world government. That's your League of Nations. That was the intention of the League of Nations. Yeah. And everybody became a member of the League of Nations. Yes. Germany, Britain, France, Italy, Portugal, everybody, even Japan.
Right.
So that's what they had in mind. Parliamentary system in every country in the world. That was their preference for the Soviet Union, and they did have that for a while, but then the Bolsheviks knocked them off. But they're okay with that. They could work with the communists, and then later on they'll make a deal, incorporate them into the world government as well. So that's what World War I set out to do, and it's amazing. They achieved everything except the United States stayed out of the League of Nations. And what a struggle that was. And Woodrow Wilson did some heavy lifting to get public support and get the public to pressure their senators to approve the treaty. Made them vote 3 times.
Yeah. And
they came up just short because you had to have 2/3 of the Senate in order to pass a treaty. So they did not require a majority to kill the treaty. You just needed to have 30 or so senators.
Wow.
They couldn't get it done. So the United States did not enter the League of Nations. That was considered a major setback for them because now you've got the emerging superpower, economic power, military power of the Western Hemisphere. It ain't much of a world government if the United States is not in it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it was still, they accomplished many agenda items.
Mm-hmm.
But without the United States present in Europe, Eastern Europe, European countries started to backslide to normalcy. Well, they would call it fascism, right?
Yeah.
And then Germany liberated itself. So for that reason, that's why World War II was fought, to finish the job. And a more accurate way of describing those two horrific genocidal disasters would be World War Part 1 and World War Part 2. It was essentially the same teams.
Yeah.
And it's exactly the same agenda.
Right.
Only difference is after World War II, there was no opposition to globalism because the way they sold it to the public, to the normies, was, you see, if we had entered the League of Nations in World War I, this would never have happened.
Interesting.
So listen to us, not those isolationists.
Right.
And they bought it. And all of the major pillars of the New World Order, one world government, were immediately erected after World War II. Because of the intense brainwashing. Everything comes out of that. The United Nations, the NATO, the CIA, right?
Yes.
Establishment of the State of Israel,
yes.
World Health Organization, the European Common Market, which was basically the seeds for the European, everything in the world today.
Yeah.
We understand as the world was established on that foundation.
Yeah. Communism, China, part of that as well.
Well, that's right. The communists took China as a direct consequence of the maneuvering of the U.S. State Department. There's a whole story there, how communism just suddenly emerged as a growing superpower in Asia and Eastern Europe, all out of World War II.
You're right.
You see, and that's how Taiwan was born. They chased Chiang Kai-shek off the island.
Yep.
They denied him of weapons. They wanted him to lose to Mao Zedong.
Right.
Okay, because he was a nationalist leader. They don't want any nationalist leaders.
Yeah.
Everyone's got to be a parliamentary democracy or a communist dictatorship that later on will transition into a parliamentary democracy. It just fundamentally and permanently altered the world, World War II.
Right.
And that's what it was all about.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I've noticed the Bolshevik, in regards to that war, now is being exposed that lots, and we're talking about millions of people were killed, extinguished, and due to their Christian faith.
Yeah.
Right. What was the thought behind that? Is it just because that this is the another level, being that the evil, the dark force really recognize, hey, you know what? We need to wipe out the positive, the light in that group.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a satanic cabal.
Yeah.
And it's a satanic clique embedded within broader Judaism. Generally, the leaders are all Jewish mobsters.
Yes.
And they hated Christianity. Most of them were atheists, even though technically they call themselves Jews, but they're atheists. Yeah, they had a special, intense hatred for Christianity. I mean, there's no question about that. And it's it's very, a lot of it has to do with just the hatred of morality in general. I mean, in China, when Mao took over, they persecuted Confucianism.
Yes.
In a similar way.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Because of the moral principles of Confucianism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity. Talking about the moral component is generally the same. They don't like that. Why? Because if you live your life, if people collectively live their lives in accordance with the moral principles that the religions espouse, you'll find that you don't need government. You become industrious. You become responsible. You become self-sufficient. You look out for your brother, your cousins, your community on your own.
Yes.
Kind of like the Amish people. They don't have a governing authority. They don't want that. That's not good. Right. And most of all, moral people, when they see immoral people in positions of power, they get pissed off about it. Right. You see? So that's a big obstacle. On the other hand, if you have degenerate people, no sense of virtue or honor, okay, that's ideal. They'll make the perfect slaves because they don't give a shit about anything.
Yes.
So that's key to destroy religion and morality and faith in God himself. So there's a reason. There's an absolute reason why the globalists and the communists always attack religion and even belief in God themselves. They say, hey, do what you want. Freedom.
Right.
Except in the economic sphere. No, give us what you got. There's no freedom there.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. So, spot on that.
Yeah.
And that's interesting that, the money becomes the driver. The third density reality forms around that. So it becomes very personal. It becomes a struggle and a fear-driven, way of life. Because you go without, then of course, then you start to go into frustration, angst, and those type of things. And we've definitely seen an avalanche of this probably since coming out of the 60s, when things start to change in regards to how we're getting propagandized by the not only fake news, but the entire entertainment industry, I believe, really piggybacked on it and recognized what was going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I remember working in the Hollywood studios and so forth and just hearing, there's only a little table full of people that makes all these decisions. Yeah. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? We have millions of people here in Los Angeles all employed in the business. You're telling me there's only a table full of people that runs the show.
Yeah.
As my eyes open to that, I start to see all these things happen. So one of the things I love about what your research has pulled out is, as we were going into World War II, is how Hitler and the Nazi Party start to build Germany up in sense of a good, solid country. Obviously, the cabal doesn't like that. Okay, so can you share a little bit with us, as you were doing research and all these things were unfurling itself, what were your thought process?
Well, I mean, it was only after I did get my first computer in the 90s that I went into that area. Yeah. Because it's such a sensitive subject. Not as much today. Today you can speak about it more.
Yes.
But historically, I mean, you don't talk about Hitler unless it's with just utter disdain and disgust and revulsion. But the facts are undeniable that Germany had been wiped out, destroyed economically and morally after World War I.
Yeah.
And was just brutally punished. And by the way, Germany bears zero responsibility, culpability for World War I. It was imposed upon Germany. But the country was horribly punished, tricked into surrender, and raped up and down.
Wow.
And what Hitler did when he rose to power is he undid all of the damage that the globalists did. First order of business, all of these debts and reparations that were imposed upon Germany.
Yeah.
It said, screw you, I ain't paying. Okay, that's strike one.
Yeah.
First year in office, pulls Germany out of the United Nations, League of Nations.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a big blow as well. You don't get out of the world government. So cleans up Berlin. Berlin was a moral cesspool. It was the world capital at that time of child prostitution, homosexuality, transgenderism. You see some of the pictures and videos out of pre-Hitler Berlin.
Yeah,
you'll be shocked.
Wow.
It was just as raunchy and as decadent as anything you would see in like the modern day San Francisco or something.
Right.
And then began to issue his own currency, took control of the central banks away from the cabal, took their newspapers away.
Yeah. And
the country went from 30% unemployment to full employment in just 4 years. There was this tremendous spirit among the people and happiness and just a sense of belonging. And we're German again. We could feel good about ourselves. It was just an amazing just transformation economically, politically, morally, culturally, sociologically, psychologically, and many outside observers from other countries, some very big, important men. It's all in writing. They made this observation. They went to Germany. What the hell happened? I mean, and Germany's booming. The rest of the world is stuck in depression.
That's right.
You can't have that. Sooner or later, people are going to ask questions. What are they doing that's so different?
Right.
France is broke. Britain is broke. Europe is broke. The United States is broke. Germany's booming. How did he put all these people back to work?
Yeah.
Had to do with the monetary policy, you see. But in every way, he brought Germany back. And this is amazing. You read his speeches, his writings, you go back to Mein Kampf, and he's talking about they want a one world government. He's talking about a super world government. We don't want any part of that. They debase the currency. We have a strong, honest currency. The Marxist subversion, etc., the central banks. It's everything that's kind of in the Q posts, and he put it into play, and that's why Germany had to be taken out, and also Japan.
Interesting.
Okay, and that's what World War II was all about, and again, this might be hard for people hearing it for the first time to even fathom, and it was for me, quite frankly. Yeah. But the deeper you get into it, my first best-selling book on Amazon was The Bad War. It was blowing up for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then the Anti-Defamation League put pressure on Amazon, and it was removed in 2017. I still sell it at realnewsandhistory.com.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't allow that on Amazon. But that's it in a nutshell. Germany and Japan, also Italy, basically collectively said, screw you to the New World Order cabal.
Mm-hmm.
And so the free world, the so-called international community, was sicked upon them to bring them back into the fold.
And they punished, of course, Germany greatly, and then vilified Hitler and everything that so-called in history. And as we, come out of World War II, the television shows. I mean, I can't even begin to say enough of how many shows I remember: The Lieutenant, Combat, Rat Patrol, all vilified, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, most of viewers here probably do know already that the government was running the television stations and programs. So we were being indoctrinated into believing this is the norm. This is actually what happened.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Japan, because, Japan did some really bad things, especially the rape of Nanjing.
Yeah.
That was just horrendous. Yeah. That's in the minds of all Chinese. Of course, when I was brought up, I was told to hate Japanese, irregardless who they were, just hate them.
Yeah.
Right. So that propaganda was being passed down. But
Yeah.
then now when you look at Japan, how did they all of a sudden supposedly got bombed, decimated, and then rebuild into this superpower?
Yeah.
You know? And yet the underbelly of Japan is equally ugly as anything I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's equally ugly as the black Europe, especially the Netherlands, Switzerland.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
equally as bad as some of the things that you see in Utah, Colorado,
Mhm.
North
Mhm.
Carolina.
Yeah.
These are the things that I think people are start to see and recognize. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
you know. And of course, the idea we were brainwashed was if we had a one world order, like futuristic, you know, we can travel galaxies, we
Yeah.
can go to and explore space,
Yeah.
and when you come back, we have united Earth. That all sounded great. Why doesn't that work?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
give me
Well,
your take on
there's
that.
something really fundamentally unnatural and unhealthy about wiping out identities, ethnicities, races, cultures, and just making one big mishmash
Hmm,
of like nothing.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just not natural. If it was natural, we would have all developed as one.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want the type of nationalistic pride that hates other countries or feels himself superior to other countries. But
Yeah.
the idea of having separate peoples that develop naturally, and they seek to destroy that. Just a people with nothing. They want nothing. People, no racial identity, no common history, no common culture, not even a gender identity anymore. Just
Right.
one, just
That's right.
one mishmash of dumbed down, demoralized
Yeah.
nothingness who don't belong to anything.
Yeah.
That's ideal. That's what they want.
Hmm.
And they will rule in perpetuity.
Hmm.
You think a people that mixed up and screwed up will ever
Right.
rise, against them? No.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Now Germany and Japan, because of the industriousness of their peoples, by
Yeah.
the 50s and 60s, were already recovering and rebuilding. But still, they got problems. They both have abysmal birth
Huge.
rates,
Yeah.
far below replacement
Yeah.
level, aging populations,
Yeah.
moral decay.
Yes.
There's problems everywhere.
That's right.
You
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you can't escape it. You can't say this country is better than that country, or
Yeah.
even in the United States,
Yeah.
which when I was growing up, we were always looking at United States being the best place to go to. I'm sure the rest
Yeah.
of the world thought that
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Because of the freedom, the American dream, and all that. When we come here to recognize, and once we understand how the system develops, we recognize that's
Yeah.
all a lie.
Yeah.
If you play the game, you join them,
Yeah.
maybe you'll get a different way of life. However,
Yeah.
you're paying for it with your soul, literally.
Yeah.
So is that worth it? Of course, the answer would be no, right?
Mhm.
But the interesting part now is that once they got, the Nazi regime in regards to on target in their scope, and World War II develops,
Yeah.
right? So how did this whole thing with tying Japan on and going, okay, let's go and hit Pearl Harbor, or was this whole thing
Yeah.
staged just so we can
Yeah.
go, okay, let's all get involved? It's
Yeah.
nothing but just one sequential scene after another in a
Yeah.
plotted out scenario.
Yeah. Well, the cabal wanted both of those regimes removed, as well as Chiang Kai-shek in China.
Hmm.
They didn't. There cannot exist anywhere on this earth a leader that puts his people first, or a government
Right.
that is populist or nationalist.
Hmm.
All right. Now, going to war against Germany, that was a more pressing issue, especially in 1941, when Germany preemptively and defensively invaded the Soviet Union. There's a whole story there. Stalin
Hmm.
was going to take all of Europe. That's
Yeah.
why Germany went into the Soviet Union. And they almost made it to Moscow by the end of 1941. So they need they can't have the Soviet Union falling, a
Hmm.
country that vast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You imagine having Germany, and then the Soviet Union has gone quote unquote fascist, right?
Yeah.
It would be game over. They can't lose. They worked so hard to get rid of the Romanov family,
Yeah.
and now here's Hitler's knocking on the door, almost ready to knock out the Bolsheviks.
Right.
So the first order of business was to keep them in the game. And to that end, massive shipments of weapons were sent to the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease program. Everything. Thousands and thousands of tanks and trucks and artillery.
Who was
even
manufacturing
things like
this?
those and
America?
America. Yeah, the
Okay.
United States. Yeah.
Okay. So we were the supplier.
It was a Lend-Lease. So like we're still kind of in the Depression, and this is where now they're converting the manufacturing to supporting the British, keep them in the war, and now the Soviet Union, keep them in the war, and then also China, keep Chiang Kai-shek in the war.
Right. Yes.
So they had to save the Soviet Union. And 1941, the winter sets in, so it's kind of like the lines just kind of settle. Can't do much in that frigid Russian winter, right? But when 1942 starts, the Germans are poised to pick up right where they're left off. So, and that's a problem. They have to save Stalin, the Soviet Union. And the Roosevelt administration is also infested with communists, by the way. And to that end, they engage in severe, intense provocation of the Germans. They're actually sinking German ships. Hitler's not responding. That's the last thing he wants is the United States to enter the war, obviously.
Right. Sure.
But Germany and Japan were bound by a defensive treaty, the Tripartite Pact, also the Anti-Communist Pact. So Japan was viewed, the war between Japan and China, which, by the way, Japan wanted to end and settle. But FDR is telling China, no, stay in the game. Here, we'll give you weapons.
Wow.
But they thought if they could provoke Japan into making a first move, then they can alter the opinion, the public opinion in the United States, which was like over 80% against entering the war. This is a little bit more than 20 years after World War I. Nobody wants to enter another war in Europe.
Yeah.
See? So I have a book called Japan's War of Self-Defense. It's all laid out in there.
Great.
And outrageous provocation of Japan ensued in 1941. And the whole time it's going on, Roosevelt's telling the country, hey, we're trying to make a deal with Japan. It's a lie. And it cut off their oil. They denied them access to the Panama Canal. They would cruise within the Japanese islands right in their waters, assisting China. There's even military assistance going on, like direct military involvement, American pilots, things like that.
Wow.
It reached a point where Japan had to make a decision. We could strike the first blow and at least establish a defense perimeter and gain an early advantage.
Yeah.
Or we could just let it come to our doorstep because that's where it's headed. And Great Britain is already in Southeast Asia, in places like Burma, etc.
Yeah.
So the decision was made. Let's strike Pearl Harbor. Let's evict the British from Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
We'll take Guam. We'll chase the Americans out of Manila. And that's what Pearl Harbor was all about. It's 100% justifiable action. It's a military target. And although it's exactly what Roosevelt wanted. And they knew the exact hour it was coming. They didn't give advance warning to the commanders. Right. And later on, they scapegoated the commanders. But when the attack hit, American people, they didn't know any of this backstory that I just gave you.
Right.
They just reckoned, why those son of bitches Japan out of nowhere, they just attacked us. Why? And Roosevelt played this up. Unprovoked attack. We were at peace with Japan. We wanted to be friends with you. Such bullshit.
Wow.
In this country that was so intensely anti-war, in an instant, over 1 million men on day one went and signed up.
Right.
Some kids as young as 16, 17 years old lying about their age. It was insane. The war mania. That's why they always refer to 9/11 as the new Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Same mental dynamic. Okay.
Yes.
And because Japan was bound with Germany, it's kind of a package deal. And that's how we got involved in World War II.
Wow.
Yeah, it really, really disgusting stuff. And you can see on YouTube Roosevelt's speech before the country the following day, the famous December 7th, 1941, a date will live in infamy. He's got the black armband.
Right.
Playing the role of the victim. So, and that's how the United States entered World War II. But that was the intention all along.
Right.
Probably from the time that the U.S. Senate rejected entry into the League of Nations.
Okay.
This
So
was
they had to
already,
figure a
yeah,
way
we're going to have
another
to go
way.
back eventually. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And,
Yeah.
and ultimately, how did they decide to say, okay, we got it. Then let's end this war and come back, and we'll declare the winner being United States, and then we'll start this whole, building of our country thing. Because
Yeah.
all that's another psyop.
Yeah.
So what was the decision at that point that they felt comfortable being the cabal saying, okay, let's do this,
You
stop
mean
ending World War II?
ending World War II? Well, it ended. Germany and Japan had suffered such horrific losses.
Yeah.
Every single one of their major cities destroyed, anywhere between 30% destruction to 70% destruction. Millions of people dead. Just suffering and mass death and destruction on a scale you won't believe. And this is all kind of like papered over now. Yeah, we know about Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but did you know Tokyo was firebombed? 100,000 people
Wow.
burnt or suffocated alive in one night. Hamburg, 40,000 dead one night. Dresden might be 200,000 or more firebombed in one night.
Horrible.
It was just a horror show. They couldn't withstand. They had the whole world against them, armed up and fueled by the industrial might of the United States.
Right.
But the war dragged down much longer than it would have, simply because the all lies, the allies, I refer to them as all lies because it's all lies,
right,
working for the cabal, demanded of Germany and Japan not just any old surrender, but unconditional surrender, which means we come in and reorganize your countries totally. Everything, your government system, your educational system, your economic system, turn it all over to us.
Yeah.
Who's going to go for that deal? What that did is it stiffened the resolve of the Germans and Japanese to keep fighting. He says they want total unconditional surrender.
Right.
And eventually they did, and then the war ended when the Allies came in. They restructured these countries. They set up the parliamentary democracies. Yeah. They put in stooges that they can work with. Yeah. People who would be amenable to the New World Order, and then ultimately Germany and Japan became good global citizens, and part of that global mafia. And at that time, it was so easy to really shove the institutions of globalism down everyone's throat, because people had been so worn down and propagandized for nearly 5 years.
Yes.
And they kept hammering with them. We can't be isolationist again. It's one world. The world is so they got everything they wanted. The globalists, like with zero resistance. So that's why I like to say World War II is the foundational mythology that defines the modern world. They built the New World Order on the ruins of World War II, which is really a continuation of World War I. Right. If you look at it that way.
I agree. And due to that, then the technology of television came into the world right after it, and they start allowing the global control in regard to a certain paradigm shift and so forth. But one of the things that always blows my mind is during the 30s, as the Nazis start, as well, Germany building themselves up, the story of Himmler going to Tibet and searching for ancient knowledge and things of that nature, and they ended up developing technology with the non-terrestrial. Did you run across that on your research?
No, I'm aware that they had an interest in the old Eastern. The swastika comes from the East. You go to India, you'll see swastikas all over the place.
For when
the ancient Aryans. So, that's kind of unfortunate too. I think had they been left alone, they would have made some discoveries about our past, which have been kind of buried.
Right. Yeah. And that's the part that there's of course a lot of theories regards to the German Bell, where they would be able to teleport and move interspace, and if they would have had time to develop, or if that's actually true or not, because we've just seen these little snippets of old film. I don't know if that's accurate, because it's just like one and a half second, right? You would think that when a military is doing that kind of experiment, they're filming, there's a lot more footage than that. No different than, let's say, when we're watching the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, and they're doing the the end scene, they had the whole camera crew set up before they were opening up the Ark of Covenant,
Yeah.
right? So I know that if they were doing those type of things, that we would have so much more documented
Yeah.
proof. But
Yeah.
up to
Now,
this point,
there's a lot of like speculation in these areas. I generally don't like to go places unless I know there's some kind of receipts there. You could really construct something solid,
yep,
and I don't really see anything solid there.
gotcha.
I would just like to mention one thing, though. The term Nazis is actually, they never called themselves that. It was the National German Socialist Workers' Party.
Yes.
It wasn't the socialism of Karl Marx. For them, socialism was an ideal of one for all for one. We're together. We're brothers.
Yes.
It didn't mean you didn't get like a check for sitting on your butt. But it's National Socialist German Workers' Party. Nazis was a derogatory term coined by some smart aleck in the West, and they call them the Nazis.
Right.
So,
and I think that's whoever's in charge of the cabal, the underbelly, they're the one who hijacked that and then start to do the infiltration with the supremacist groups through the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, utilizing some of the theories. It's like all evil always do. They give you a little bit of the truth, and then they give you a lot of the lies, and then let you run with it amok. Right. And so those are kind of things that I'm so glad you're bringing up, because for the longest time, we know all these things we just took it for granted that because it was taught in school, it was fact. Right. Now we're starting to see things differently. Like, for instance, numbers of the things in the Holocaust and people that's involved didn't add up mathematically. Of course, the Anne Frank diary, that all of a sudden now started to come out being, well, no, somebody else manufactured this. So all of a sudden it started to challenge the establishment in regards to what we're being taught. So that to me is a huge step in regards to, okay, so now we're coming out of World War II. What is actually happening? Why? Or now we're controlled by the central bank. We saw that, right? Then, of course, in I believe 60, 61, where OPEC was developed. So the petrodollar becomes a strength. So that changes another structure to how we operate, right? So, but right before then, coming out of the World War II, and we're having this great resurgence of American lifestyle. In other words, now we're starting to build suburbia. People are starting to afford their own house, having children. Everything was great and so forth. And out of nowhere, we have a couple of stories that comes out. Number one, the Roswell incident. That comes out. The number two incident is in the 50s with Eisenhower signing Tau 9 treaty with a group of non-terrestrials being offered technology. You run across any of this in your research, or is this just so-called floating out there?
It's just stuff that's out there. There's no like actual receipts for that sort of stuff. But these things go out there and they get repeated, and people start to give them credence. Another one is Hitler in Argentina. He escaped Berlin. He didn't kill himself. He went to Argentina. I looked at all that stuff. I'm like, are you serious? There's nothing here but Elvis sightings. This guy says that some guy told him, and somebody said, I mean, we know that Germans escaped and went to Argentina. That's a fact. So you could just kind of imagine like some high-level Germans living incognito in some areas of Argentina, and maybe the locals saying, I think Hitler's in there. I saw that kind of stuff. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing there. Conversely, in Berlin, you had multiple witnesses who were Germans. People say, oh, you can't believe the Soviets. But the original story doesn't come from the Soviets. It comes from the Germans who were in that bunker. A secretary, bodyguard. Some of them only died 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
But anyway, it circulates and circulates, and just the fact that it's being repeated lends a degree of faux credibility to it.
Right.
But I always look for like actual receipts, and if you can't get receipts, you got to get something like a preponderance of circumstantial evidence to make a really good with a lot of this stuff. There's really nothing there, but it gets repeated, and I generally don't dabble in this. I got to have something I can stick my teeth into,
right?
Either in terms of probabilities or receipts.
Yeah. That's why I think your research is just immaculate. The depth of your research is better than anything I've ever seen in any college level. Like you always said,
Yeah.
read my stuff, you get that type of
Yeah.
information and that type of
Yeah.
knowledge. And I agree. And that's where, it's so important for us to really understand and learn about our truth because of the situation that we're currently sitting in. I know a lot of people are frustrated. A lot of people are feeling angst, not quite understanding how the heck did we even get here in the first place, right? And one of the things that I definitely recognize that as we move along, it seems to be almost the entire government system, the presidents, that if you didn't go along with the program, you're going to get taken out. So you better go along with the program.
Yeah.
And every one of those guys will try to do something nice to offset the bad things they did.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things that to me has always been glaringly looking at is how we were brought after the war into the safety net, despite of that almost within less than 20 years, Vietnam happens. And all of a sudden we're fighting a war that for what purpose? Even today, when we're watching all these documentaries and so forth, I think most people would look at it and go, well, look at the brutality of this. We got 18-year-old kids over there, and they have no idea what they're getting into. And yet we're there.
Yeah.
So first question for you on this particular whole situation is, while all these wars were happening since 1900 and so forth, was the royal family in charge? Were they the so-called the top of that cabal that they were, sending that out, or were they still just like what they became a figurehead?
The British royal family was really reduced to figurehead status at least by 1900.
Okay. Yeah.
And whatever power, wealth, and influence that they wielded was permitted to them by the people that bumped them off, and that would be the Jewish cabal. And this was a process. They got in bed with the Rothschild family in the early 1800s because they were obsessed with taking out Napoleon.
Yeah.
And in the final few wars against Napoleon, the Rothschilds opened up the bank accounts and funded Britain and her allies to take down Napoleon. And he emerged from the Napoleonic Wars richer than ever, more politically powerful than ever. Yeah. So it was a gradual process of just acquiring more, or I would say displacing the British monarchy more and more and more, because Britain had a parliament. Britain was actually a constitutional monarchy since the 1600s. So you talk about you had the British crown, but you also had the parliament at equal power. That happened in the 1600s with the Cromwell Revolution. But then as the centuries passed, that parliament began to get more powerful and the king less powerful. So it's hard to pinpoint an exact line where the monarchy became figureheads because it's a process.
Yeah.
But certainly by the end of World War II, they were nothing. The last British monarch who tried to assert himself in any way politically was King Edward in the 1930s. He openly admired Hitler's accomplishments. And he was openly complaining about the conditions in Depression-era Britain. Something's got to be done here. Cabal didn't like that, especially the Hitler stuff, right?
Yeah.
So he became king, and in 1936, his first month as king, somebody pulls a gun on him. It was an assassination attempt. He was apprehended in the process.
Wow.
So they didn't get him with that. But then months later, they created a controversy over the fact that he was going to marry an American divorcee. Now, that's not appropriate for the king. That was all juiced up. The people didn't want that.
Right.
But they created all this pressure. And as the story goes, for the love of Miss Simpson, King Edward abdicated from the throne. So then he was demoted back to a Duke of York. And then him and his fiancée, or maybe his wife by the time, they went to Germany to visit Hitler. You see pictures of Hitler's bending over, kissing her hand. He loved Hitler.
Yeah.
He really did. You can't have that as King of England because technically the king can dismiss the prime minister and call for new elections.
Oh, interesting.
technically.
Yeah.
They never assert themselves in that manner, but he's the type of fella, the way he was going. He had to go if there was going to be Britain was going to go to war.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
and since that time, nothing
Right.
in terms of asserting themselves. They became the cabal.
Okay. Okay.
They're part of it totally,
Yeah.
but subservient. The Rothschilds outranked the British
Right.
crown.
Well, I've seen pictures, definitely photos of seen the royal family bowing down to the members of Rothschild. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. And interesting, you also brought up the Jew cabal,
yeah.
right? That this faction has been around for thousands of years. Am I correct? I mean, we could probably date this back all the way back to Canaanite.
Yeah, the satanic element within it.
Yeah.
There was actually a woman who was a Jewish woman who was on the Oprah Winfrey show like 30 years ago, Vicky Poland, and she was saying that there's this satanic element within Jewry, and I was abused as a child, and I participated in satanic rituals.
Yeah.
Of course, she made it clear, this is not what all Jews do. We know that, of course.
Right.
But it's an element embedded within it, and it's even spoken about in the New Testament, which is written like almost 2,000 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, there's something within that, and when they engage in this behavior, and there's a public uprising, unfortunately, sometimes innocent Jews get caught up in it.
Yes. Unfortunately.
But this cabal at its core,
yeah,
we don't say, oh, this is what the Jews are doing. But on the other hand, if we refuse to call it a Jewish core, that's not being honest either. I mean, Rothschild, Bernard Baruch, in the modern day, George Soros. Yeah. We see what the Mossad did 9/11. Come on, we all know that. They took out JFK, RFK. Yeah. So this is a problem. The Italians have their...
What is real? Real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Open your mind.
Okay. We back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a break?
Somehow my computer went black and I just went, okay, what happened here? And as I came back on, the intro started. Sorry. Everybody, we're still here.
We're here. Right. I'm here.
Sorry. Sometimes, technology just decides to do its own. And I wonder, there's a little energies and interdimensions that's just saying, well, we don't want them to talk about this.
Yeah. I was thinking that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going into areas we're not supposed to go.
Right.
But, as I was saying, this cabal at its pinnacle is the Rothschild Jewish cabal.
Yeah.
With a lot of helpers of all different races and ethnicities who are ambitious and will sell their souls. Yeah. Okay. But the Rothschilds were the big bosses. And you mentioned those pictures. You ever see the one, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild sticking his finger in Prince Charles's chest?
Right.
What happened to protocol? You're not supposed to touch the royals.
Right.
You could tell in their interaction who's the superior and who's the subordinate.
Right. Oh, there's so much things that I think came out, especially since the lockdown, where that period of time gave us a lot of free time on hand to go look for stuff.
Yeah.
And I know I personally did so much deep dive during that year, 2020, and I've just came up with so much things and evidence. I just went, you got to be kidding me, right? Like, for instance, the things that we're talking about, the trafficking of the humans and all those things that is now going on, that is being exposed. I found a company in Great Britain that was selling human skin products. We're talking about belts, wallets, things of that nature. And you have to be, and it said on this website, you have to be recommended by someone for you to
Wow.
do business with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just blown away that I could sit there and just find this on the internet.
Yeah.
Right. But again, now we've go try to look for this type of stuff. It's gone.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the interesting part is despite of how much we're finding out new stuff, they're just constantly removing stuff. Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. When we were gone on the lockdown aspect of it, at that time, there seems to be a story that was circulating around that 17 nations gathered their military strength and was doing an invasion through Europe. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. Because that story came out.
Was it overt invasion, or you mean I do believe that there were massive roundups that occurred during the lockdown.
Right. Well, the invasion meaning they were cleaning house.
Oh, that's what you meant. Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely do believe that. And it was during that period of time we saw all those very peculiar videos being put out by these Hollywood celebrities. You could tell they were afraid of something. Madonna did one. Ellen DeGeneres did one.
Yes.
Kevin Spacey did one. David Spade. And they were speaking cryptic language, but they were afraid. They were being hunted during the COVID lockdowns, which was ideal. Because by that time, Trump already had the authority of Executive Order 13818. I believe a lot of people were disappeared. It was just the perfect time to do it.
Right.
And replaced with people wearing masks or AI, whatever. We don't know who's real and who's not real.
I know that seems to be a situation where that's creating a lot of confusion for a lot of people. I think it absolutely takes the level of conspiracy theorists just up to several notches, because the simple fact that you're telling me there's multiple Joe Bidens and some of them are actors and some are wearing masks and some of them are clones. And just to hear that thought, you have to say, nah, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing pictures lined up next to each other, you kind of go, well, wait a minute, this guy looks nothing like that guy.
Yeah.
Right. So what is your thought behind all this?
Well, you know, the beauty of the Q operation, it's so incredible, outlandish, and that's what conceals it. It's like, I like to say the enormity of the thing actually, paradoxically, is what conceals it.
Yeah.
It's like a time where I took a cousin who was visiting from another part of the country to see the Empire State Building in New York, and I'm looking for, I got the address. I'm like, where the hell is this thing? And then I see a sign right in front of me on the door, Empire State Building, and I look up. Oh, there it is. It's so enormous you can't see it.
Yes. Yeah,
And
I get you.
that's what this is. People can't get their minds around, they can't grasp it. But the Q planners, the operators, they knew that in advance, and they used it to their advantage. Because isn't that how the bad guys have been pulling the wool over our eyes all these years?
Yeah.
No one believed that they would blow up the Twin Towers. Nobody believes that, even though it's true. It's the same principle.
Yeah.
As far as Biden, I mean, Trump even told us multiple times that Biden's been shot. He says, he keeps saying he's shot. He's got half his head left. He doesn't even know he's alive. He said that hundreds of times.
Yes.
What does he mean by that?
Right.
Newsweek magazine. I've got a book called The Secret Plan to Save Humanity. That's also a 1-hour read. You can find that at Amazon.
Okay.
My Amazon page is Mike King, or you go to realnewsandhistory.com. You'll see it right there on the homepage, The Secret Plan to Save Humanity. Really give you a good basic understanding of this Q operation.
Yes.
But you'll see, I summarize in there how there's no way that's Joe Biden. His inauguration was not an inauguration; it was a funeral.
Yes.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I found quite by accident, and this kind of got me a lot of publicity when I found this. I might not be the only one who found it, but certainly I was the first one to begin talking about it. It was a Newsweek article that appeared, I don't know, 2018, 19, 20, something like that. It was about this, quote, a 60,000 man secret army.
Wow.
And that's what the investigation was about. There's a secret army that the Pentagon has put together, and nobody knows what it's for. And these are intelligence type operatives. They're not like conventional soldiers. Fake identities. A lot of them wear masks, so sophisticated your own mother can't tell if it's you or not.
Wow.
That sort of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's in my book, but that's what it is. And they've got control over the media. Everything is under the control of a special military operation now. Everything.
Right.
It's not totally visible yet to the general public because it's not meant to be. Because
Gotcha.
the object of the game now is to slowly, very slowly, we're unraveling generational brainwashing here.
Yes.
Do it all at once, you'll confuse the hell out of people, and they won't believe what you're telling them, right?
Right.
Look at this Epstein stuff, and that's the key. That is what Q said. The enormity of what is coming will shock the world.
Yeah.
He's speaking mainly and specifically of the revelation surrounding Epstein, Mossad Island, the rape, the torture, the killing of children.
Yes.
But look how long this is dragging out just to release these files.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Why? Why? Because you're watching a movie, and a good movie builds tension. Trump has got the normies believing that for some reason he's afraid to release these things. He had to be dragged, kicking and screaming. No,
Right.
not at all. This all builds tension. And then you've got the left thinking, yeah, what are you hiding, Trump? So when this stuff comes out, can't nobody say, oh, Trump rigged this.
Right. Right.
You know, he's being forced to release it. And you've got this drama between him and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was once his strongest supporter. That's all fake. It's all stage.
Yes. Interesting.
But that's why they're doing it. It's going to come out slowly. That's why the process is so slow.
Yeah.
Because we're teaching calculus to like children. You know, it's going to take a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now what does the public see? Well, everyone knows that there was this bad place called Epstein's Island. Everybody knows that there's some big people there. And now everybody senses that there's an attempt to hush it up. What's up with that? Right?
Yes.
Building tension, just like a good movie. This way, when the bombs drop, they will penetrate and resonate. You see?
Wow. Yes.
So that's what's going on with this Q operation. And what the Q operation is undoing is all the things we've talked about, this generational cabal.
Right.
Only this time, it's not going to be like a temporary minor victory, such as when the United States stayed out of the League of Nations or when Hitler liberated Germany. No, this is comprehensive. They're getting everything. They're going to hit the Fed. They're hitting Hollywood. They're hitting academia, fake news. They got a plan for everything. This is going to be a total cleansing, every last cancer cell.
Yeah. And this plan's been
essentially already been done, by the way. What we're seeing now is what I call the great replay. That's what we're waiting for.
Gotcha.
So they have to take these dangerous people out.
Right.
Privately and secretly, one at a time.
Yeah.
Before now they can reveal it. Because if you just went at them when the deep state was at full strength, they could put up a ferocious resistance and get a lot of people killed.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not going out quietly. They're going to knock down everything, drag out in your store before they get out the door. That's what I've always heard, and that's how they behave. You know. But that's interesting. How long do you estimate from your research that this whole operation's been in existence? Because I've heard so many different, years or decades or even centuries. So how far do you think this goes back?
Right. Well, the Q posts, as we know, started in late 2017, but it goes beyond that.
Yeah.
Because for any of this to be possible, they had to get their man in the White House.
Yes.
And when did Trump come down the escalator? Well, that takes us back now to 2015.
Right.
When did Trump suddenly begin making overtly political statements and tweets? Now you're going back to 2012, 2011.
Yeah.
And that 60,000 man secret army I talked about in the Newsweek investigation, when was that being put together? It estimates about 2010. But even before that, you had to have prep work.
Right.
I spoke earlier about my opinion. I can't prove this, but I do believe it, that the release of internet technology was done with this ultimate goal in mind. So now that takes us back to the 1990s.
Yes.
So at least until then.
Yeah.
And I've heard people speculate after Kennedy was murdered, some people got together and said, we got to do something.
Right.
And it's going to take a while, but we got to do something.
Right.
Plausible. No hard receipts there.
Yeah.
But definitely we could take it back in terms of stuff that began to happen like 2010. the formation of the 60,000 man secret army, Donald Trump all of a sudden getting into politics,
Right.
making all these tweets.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's hard to say when it started. And then even beyond that, just the general concept of good guys in the military trying to mount a resistance in their own limited way. We could go back to the 1932 Bonus Army March, which was organized by communists. They marched on Washington. They got a bunch of World War I veterans to go down there and demand a bonus that was not due to them for another 10, 15 years. But it was totally communist inspired, and they were going to spread to other cities. And President Hoover brought in General Douglas MacArthur to keep an eye on the situation, but gave him great latitude in terms of dealing with it. He wasted no time. He tore up their shacks, their tents, busted a few skulls, sent them home. It was very rough with them.
Wow.
And a lot of people criticized him for that. And then they said Hoover's a tyrant, this and that. But the reason, and we know this for a fact, that the reason why MacArthur cracked down so hard, and he's included a lot of veterans, is because he knew what it was. This wasn't no spontaneous march. We're hungry. This was a communist insurrection. So you got stuff like that. MacArthur, Patton. There was a surveillance program that the military Army Signal Corps put in place during World War II, which nobody knew about, where they were monitoring communications and bad guys. So that you see this in bits and pieces going back, way back, at least to the 30s. Patriotic military men, knowing what these people are up to, but they don't have the political ability to do anything about it.
Right.
And they're not going to stage a coup. People won't accept that.
Right.
But in their own way, they did try to resist and push back. So that goes back even much farther. And once you understand that, it becomes easier to accept something like the Q operation.
Sure.
Of course. Because think about it. These military patriots, generationally, decade after decade, it must have burned them up to have the knowledge they had and not be able to do anything about it because it's warrantless surveillance. Right? What do you do? Either you let the country go to hell, which makes you negligent in your duty because they're honor bound to protect the country.
Right.
Or you stage a violent, bloody coup. And the deep state was just as powerful as you. The military would, you have a bloody civil war. What do you do? How do you address it?
Yeah.
Irregular warfare, special operations. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
You avoid the blood. You avoid the bloodshed.
Yeah.
It's either mass bloodshed, civil war, or do nothing, and the communist globalists take over.
Yeah.
Pick your poison, right?
That's right.
They went with this incredibly genius special operations scheme that they just planned out, mapped out, and executed flawlessly, methodically, like only military can do.
Yeah. It's a brilliant plan. And I have a theory that I believe Donald Trump was recruited while he was in military school. You know,
it could very well be.
Because the nature of his family and the nature of who he was historically, I think ultimately when they approached him, being a stand-up young man, to explain to him the situation, he says, we're going to play your life this way. Because think about all the industry he got involved in regards to trafficking with the pageants, in regards to mafia with the gamblings in the casinos, you know, these in real estate, of course, real estate's huge in regards to the underbelly of this. And for him to have not just surface experience, but in-depth experience in all these things, I don't think was by accident. Not at all. What was
and we also know that he worked with the FBI, him and his brother. Cooperated with them. And there's an ex-mobster. He's got videos out there. I forget his name. I think it was Sammy Gravano, the bull.
Yeah.
Says, oh yeah, we tried to get to Trump. Nah, you can't touch. He's clean. You know, Trump didn't want anything to do with that stuff, and he helped the FBI. Yeah. So he's like a righteous justice kind of guy. He doesn't put up with bullshit.
Right.
You know.
That's why I think he was on.
He's really the only one who could have pulled this off.
Right.
I mean, even though it's the military operation doing everything now,
for
his first term, you still needed someone who could sell it.
Yes.
You know? So, I mean, he was just perfect in every way.
Yeah.
They definitely recruited him. I don't think anybody else would have had the balls to do it. And I'm sure they guaranteed him military protection, of course.
Right.
Nonetheless, you can't 100% guarantee anything like that. I'm sure the cabal tried to take him out in one way or another.
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I mean, look at how many pictures we have of Donald in various different states that looks nothing like each other.
Yeah.
But we all know that, King's been protected by doubles for eons, right? Yeah. So this is not new in regards to protect your leader. But it seems to be more evident today because we have so much documentation.
Yeah, we have daily internet images. Every human being now is a potential journalist.
Exactly.
YouTube.
Right.
It's amazing. Yeah.
And guys, like us on podcasting has now changed the way that we think and do our homework and research in regards to what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Where 10 years ago, when you log on to a podcast, it was generally about storytelling and entertainment. It was still very surfacey. And it's amazing how this shifted, this whole dynamic. And I think that was done by design.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike, you're incredible, man. Tell us again about your website and your books.
Okay. Well, I've got 3 elements of my educational operation here. One is realnewsandhistory.com. It's very unique in 2 ways. First of all, nobody weaves together history and the news. And you can see how I did that in our conversation tonight.
Yep.
When you present the history, it brings the current stuff into much clearer focus. So that's a niche that had to be filled, and that's what I do. And then I think the other niche is I do it in such a way that's so clear, concise, and simple. Anybody could come up the learning curve. I don't write for the academic class. I write people who are pressed for time and they want to know what is it that I basically need to know about how the world works and how we got from there to here. So there's a ton of free content, very user-friendly. Please bookmark and have a look at realnewsandhistory.com. In addition to all the free stuff, I've got 34 books and PDFs. The whole package is just $29, and that's how you could support me. And these are books which are history books. But if you thought you never had an interest in history, it's because it hasn't been taught right. You read my stuff, it's captivating, it's riveting. I'm just telling a story, and it's a true story. My stuff is solid. So that's the website and the book package. The second element is Amazon. If you want the books in physical format, my Amazon author page, Mike King. Mm-hmm. I prefer you get the books, physical books, through Amazon. However, the Bad War and some of the other World War II stuff you could only get through my website at the books and PDFs section. Yeah. They were too hot for Amazon to handle, which tells you something.
Yes.
And then lastly, I have a Rumble channel myself.
Yeah.
Just search for me, just Mike King. I'll be the first one that comes up. And I do Rumble videos on history, current events, Q operation. And if you want to take a 300-year journey in a series of 40 episodes, which are about 35 to 40 minutes apiece, you go right to realnewsandhistory.com, and it links to my Rumble channel for those videos. It's called The Rise and Fall of the New World Order Cabal. And I go decade by decade by decade, from the Illuminati through the 1900s, the 20th century. I just finished up to 1970, episode 30. I expect to be done with the series within another month. So you can definitely, please follow me on Rumble. If you're not a member, join Rumble. It's free. I want to get my follower count here. More people need to see my stuff.
Oh, agreed, 100%.
Yeah.
And this is why, I can't be more grateful enough and thank you enough to appear on the conversation. This conversation has been incredible, Mike. I want to let you know that you're welcome here. Anytime you're ready to want to talk about something, please let me know.
All right.
We'll bring you on. Because again, I think I've learned so much from you this past year. It reevaluated my whole paradigm to why we're where we are at today.
Yeah.
And that gives me a peace of mind. And I know a lot of you out there are going through this current move of what's going on in the world, and it's just extremely frustrating. It's confusing and somewhat very negative. And this is what they want to create within us, this doubt. Yeah. And if you learn the history of it, and Mike guides it, like he says, it is written in a way that we can absorb and assimilate this information without going, sleep in class like I did in history. Right? So I thank you so much, Mike, for doing that for all of us. And I say that with my heart, my spirit, that you're one of the best researchers I've ever
thank
heard.
you.
And to the audience out there, go check it out and get the books, get yourself educated to understand what is actually going on.
Yeah.
And of course, like and subscribe. Always do that. Go to Mike's Rumble channel, like and subscribe here at riphills.tv, Rip Hills Project. All of us are doing the same thing similarly in our ways, our own ways to be able to enhance who we are, betterment of humanity, and the greatness of all of us coming out of this dark period of humanity and going into the new world that is not controlled, that is not driven by money, that is not done by empowerment, suppressing and putting other people in bondage. Right? So,
amen.
Yeah. Thank you again, Mike. And with that, I want to say thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll see you on the next Conversations on the Fringe. Mike, thanks again, sir. We'll play out.
Okay. Good night, Jeff. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
You bet.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!